12-year-old Ava Thompson wasn't supposed to be a hero. She was just another passenger on Flight 327 until disaster struck midair. With the pilot unconscious and panic spreading, Ava did the unthinkable. What she did next stunned the crew, saved 187 lives, and made headlines worldwide. But no one expected what happened just 24 hours later: a personal call from the president. 12-year-old Ava Thompson boarded Flight 327 with her sketchpad, earbuds, and no idea that she was about to face the unimaginable. The plane was cruising smoothly at 30,000 feet when a sharp jolt shook the cabin. A sudden drop. Screams. Oxygen masks. In the cockpit, the pilot had suffered a heart attack. The co-pilot was unconscious after hitting his head during the turbulence. Inside the chaos, flight attendants scrambled for instructions. But it was Ava, quiet, observant, and oddly calm, who noticed something crucial. Her uncle, a retired flight instructor, had taught her flight simulators as a game. And now, those games were the only thing keeping Flight 327 from disaster. With the help of the intercom and a stunned air traffic controller, Ava made her way to the cockpit. Her hands trembled as she gripped the yoke, but her voice was steady. For the next 17 minutes, she followed instructions to stabilize the plane, level its altitude, and guide it to an emergency landing at a nearby airbase. When the wheels touched down and the plane skidded to a halt, 187 people erupted into cheers. Ava just sat there, stunned, clutching the controls. But her story didn't end there. 24 hours later, her family received a call from the White House. The president had heard the story, and he had one question: would Ava join him at the Capitol to be honored in front of the nation? Ava Thompson didn't just save a plane. She reminded the world that courage doesn't wait for adulthood, and sometimes, heroes come with backpacks and braids. It began like any other flight. Ava Martinez, 12 years old and afraid of heights, settled into her window seat on Flight 527 with headphones and her favorite book. Her parents reassured her it would be smooth, just a short hop across the country. But 30 minutes in, the sky turned violent. A brutal pocket of turbulence sent the plane lurching. Oxygen masks dropped. Drinks spilled. Panic rippled through the cabin, but the real crisis was hidden behind the cockpit door. Both pilots had gone silent. Ava noticed it first. Her seat was close to the front, and when a flight attendant pounded on the cockpit door with no response, her instincts kicked in. Most kids would freeze. Ava moved. She remembered hours spent in her grandfather's flight simulator back home. It was supposed to be for fun, but today, it was the only training anyone on board had. Guided by air traffic control and a trembling flight attendant relaying instructions, Ava squeezed into the captain's chair. "Take a deep breath. Keep her steady," the voice in her headset said. Ava gripped the controls, heart pounding, hands small but steady. In a miraculous 20-minute sequence that defied all odds, Ava brought the plane out of its nosedive and managed a rough but safe emergency landing on a regional runway. All 196 passengers and crew survived. The story broke the internet within hours. 24 hours later, the president extended a personal invitation: come to the White House. She would be honored for her bravery, composure, and lightning-fast thinking. Ava didn't just survive the turbulence, she conquered it. And in doing so, she soared far beyond the sky. The world couldn't stop talking about the girl who saved Flight 842. 12-year-old Nia Carter had no intention of becoming a national hero when she boarded the plane that morning. She was just a middle schooler heading home from a science competition, headphones in, backpack stuffed with snacks and medals. But when both pilots became incapacitated mid-flight, everything changed. While terrified passengers prayed and the cabin crew scrambled for control, Nia noticed something critical: an autopilot failure warning on a nearby display. She'd seen it before. Her older brother, a flight simulator enthusiast, had taught her how to spot system malfunctions during hours of weekend play. It all came rushing back. With calm beyond her years, Nia alerted a flight attendant, relayed what she saw, and offered to help. Unbelievably, she was right. Air traffic control was contacted, and with their guidance, Nia helped stabilize the plane from the co-pilot's seat. Adjusting altitude and engaging manual systems. After a tense 18 minutes, the plane made an emergency landing. Every soul on board survived. The next day, still in shock and recovering from the whirlwind of media attention, Nia's family received a phone call. Unknown number. Washington, D.C. The president was on the line. He'd heard every detail, and he wasn't just calling to say thank you. He wanted Nia in the White House that weekend. She would receive the Presidential Medal of Bravery in a private ceremony and be named an honorary ambassador for youth emergency response. Nia was speechless. She never imagined a nightmare in the sky would lead to the most surreal moment of her life. She saved lives. She stayed calm under pressure. But nothing prepared her for the shocking invitation that followed. It was supposed to be a routine flight. 12-year-old Lily Morgan sat by the window of Flight 714, doodling in her notebook, unaware that her quiet creativity would soon be tested in the most unimaginable way. The plane had just reached cruising altitude when turbulence rocked the cabin. At first, it was mild. Then, everything spiraled. The intercom crackled, but instead of the captain's voice, there was silence. In the cockpit, both pilots had collapsed. A suspected air contamination issue rendered them unconscious. Panic swept through the cabin. Flight attendants tried desperately to maintain order, but there was no one to fly the plane. Until Lily stood up. A quiet, observant girl with a passion for aviation, Lily had spent years studying flight manuals and watching cockpit tutorials with her father, a flight mechanic. She had never flown a real plane, but she knew the systems, the screens, the terms. When she asked to be taken to the cockpit, the crew hesitated. But air traffic control, now aware of the crisis, approved the unthinkable: let the child take the controls. With instructions fed through her headset, Lily worked with trembling fingers to stabilize the aircraft. Altitude, pitch, autopilot override, she handled it all with calm focus, even as alarms screamed and passengers wept behind her. 25 agonizing minutes later, Flight 714 made a rough but successful landing at a remote airstrip. Not a single life was lost. The world was stunned. Lily became a global symbol of courage and instinct. She didn't panic. She didn't give up. She stepped forward when no adult could. In a world full of chaos, it wasn't a superhero or trained professional who saved the day. It was a child, with heart, knowledge, and the courage to act. 12-year-old Maya Reynolds boarded Flight 906 as just another middle schooler with a backpack, a sketchbook, and a fear of turbulence. She had no idea that within hours, she'd be making life-or-death decisions that would capture the world's attention. An hour into the flight, disaster struck. Violent turbulence rocked the plane, knocking passengers from their seats and triggering panic. Worse, the cockpit had gone eerily silent. Both pilots were unresponsive due to a suspected electrical malfunction. The autopilot had disengaged. The plane began a slow, terrifying descent. While chaos unfolded around her, Maya stayed calm. Her grandfather, a retired pilot, had taught her the basics of flying through simulation games and weekend lessons. It had always been a bonding activity, never something she imagined using in real life. But now, with no other option, Maya stepped forward. She was escorted to the cockpit by a trembling flight attendant. With guidance from air traffic control and instincts beyond her years, Maya took control. She read gauges, corrected the pitch, and helped steer the plane toward a safe landing zone. Her hands were shaking, but her voice never wavered. 17 minutes later, Flight 906 landed safely on a rural airstrip. Every soul on board survived. But that was only the beginning. Within 24 hours, Maya's name was everywhere: news headlines, social media, live interviews. Her family received a call from the White House. The president himself wanted to meet her. She was to be honored in a national ceremony for her courage under pressure. In just one day, Maya went from anonymous passenger to national hero. She didn't just survive a crisis, she became the reason others did. It was a single day. But for Maya, and for everyone on board, it was the 24 hours that changed everything. 12-year-old Emma Collins never imagined her summer vacation would turn into a historic moment. Boarding Flight 419, she was just another passenger looking forward to visiting her grandparents. But when a sudden medical emergency struck the pilot mid-flight, Emma's world flipped upside down. The captain slumped forward, unconscious. The co-pilot was injured and unable to take control. Panic spread like wildfire among passengers and crew. With no trained pilot at the controls, disaster seemed inevitable. But Emma, who had spent countless hours playing flight simulators with her older brother, recognized what was happening. Calm in the chaos, she raised her hand and offered to help. The flight attendants were skeptical but desperate. With the guidance of an air traffic controller over the radio, Emma was led to the cockpit. Heart pounding, hands shaking, she took hold of the controls. For the next 20 nerve-wracking minutes, Emma carefully followed instructions, stabilizing the plane and guiding it toward an emergency landing. When the wheels finally touched down safely, the cabin erupted in cheers. Emma had done what many adults couldn't. The story spread rapidly. Reporters hailed her as a hero. But the most unexpected moment came 24 hours later when her family received a call from the White House. The president himself wanted to speak with Emma. He thanked her personally for her bravery and invited her to the White House for a special ceremony honoring her courage and quick thinking. It was a moment Emma and the entire nation would never forget. She saved a plane full of lives, and then the president called. A young girl's courage had turned a nightmare into a story of hope.